Well, hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on creating healthy organizations. My name is Steve Peterson. I'll be your webinar host today. Just before we get started, I wanted to give you a brief orientation to our interface and to our organization as well. Equiate, if you're not familiar with us, we're a consulting company based in Alberta, and our focus is on solving social problems, looking at systems thinking, looking at root causes, and a few other tools that we have as a way of doing that. If you look at your interface, this will become important towards the end when we have our question and answer session. At the top there, you'll see a few icons just above the slides. One of them is My Mood, and if you hover your mouse just over that, you'll see a few options appear: a thumbs up, a thumbs down, a raise your hand, and I'm fine. When we get to the question section, you'll be using the one way to do it will be to raise your hand so that we know you have a question, and then you can either type it in by chat or speak it through your computer or your telephone. So just to check and make sure this is working, if you could all click on the raise your hand piece there. There we go, perfect. You can see in the window there how a hand appears beside everybody's name. So that's working wonderfully. Beautiful. All right. Well, I'd also like to mention we are recording today's webinar, so this will be available on our website today or tomorrow. It takes a bit of time to process the recording once it's complete, but that way you don't have to feel like you have to scribble notes if you don't want to. It will be available after the webinar. Also, if you have any questions from the get-go, feel free to email them to myself, and we'll be sure to read them out and include them in the question and answer session. If you have a burning question on this topic that you want to just get off your chest, go ahead and email it to us. Otherwise, once we get to the question and answer session, there'll be time to ask them and discuss them either through the chat window or through the audio through this webinar. So I'd like to introduce, today we have a guest presenter. His name is Michael Parker. What you see on your screen is a picture of Royal Roads University in Victoria. Michael is a human resources advisor and consultant. He has a master's degree from Royal Roads. It's an old military academy. If any of you have been to it in Victoria, it's actually where I got my engagement pictures taken when I got married way back when. It's a really rough campus, as you can tell, but it's a great place. And so we're glad to have Michael with us today. He's worked in the public service sector for over 15 years and is a consultant for both nonprofit and for-profit organizations, and he's very knowledgeable and passionate about this topic, so we're excited to have him conduct this webinar for us today.
Thanks very much, Steve. Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be spending this time with you today talking about organizational health and how to create it within the places in which we work. I understand that many of you work in the field of health and public health. Therefore, we will at times focus in on the healthcare sector. Healthcare is one of Canada's largest employers, and given the nature of their work, healthcare employers and workers are ideal candidates to become leaders in building healthy organizations. Though we will be perhaps using the healthcare sector as an example, all of the principles and practices we will be sharing today can apply in any organization. So let's get into it. So why organizational health? Well, Patrick Lencioni, a renowned author and organizational consultant, has stated, "The single greatest advantage any organization can achieve is through organizational health." Focusing on organizational health can help organizations maximize their potential and service capability to their clients and communities and obtain competitive advantages in their industry if that is applicable. This is particularly relevant for organizations working in the field of health. Concentrating on organizational health not only increases the internal capacity for the organizations to fulfill its mandate, but also demonstrates leadership and models practices for the partners it works with and the communities within which it serves. In today's webinar, we're going to walk through what a healthy organization is and describe the advantages that can be gained by focusing on organizational health. We're going to describe some of the attributes of healthy and unhealthy organizations, and we'll conclude by identifying practical and meaningful strategies that can be implemented at all levels of an organization to improve organizational health. So what does it actually mean and look like to be a healthy organization? Well, describing a healthy organization is not that much different than how you would describe a healthy person. From the outside, people who are healthy would seem to be full of energy, thriving, strong, and are able to get many things accomplished, while on the inside, their systems are all working properly and they have a strong immunity to challenges. These attributes are the same for healthy organizations. Dr. Graham Lowe, Canadian author, academic, and organizational consultant, defines a healthy organization as one in which all systems are well integrated. It operates successfully today, develops new capacity to thrive tomorrow, and has mutually beneficial, positive relationships, both internally with teams and individuals, and externally with clients and communities. Above all, he says, healthy organizations forge an enduring link between well-being and performance. A healthy person is not just fit in body, though, but also in mind, emotionally, and spiritually. The Health, Work, and Wellness Group of Canada describes a healthy organization as one that supports employees' needs for mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and social well-being, and is regarded by employees as great or exceptional. I like this because it brings organizational health right down to the individual employee level. Lencioni describes a healthy organization as one that on the outside demonstrates high productivity and has low turnover of its good employees, while inside the organization, employees have high morale and steps are taken to minimize confusion, politics, and bureaucracy. He identifies the health of the organization as key because it is the springboard upon which all activities and results in the organization are achieved. These definitions I've shared look at organizational health from a micro or individual level and also from a macro organizational level. It is important to consider all of the systems within an organization when looking at its health. An organization is made up of individuals, teams, and interconnected branches and divisions. A healthy organization is one that implements strategies and practices that can positively impact at all of these levels, individual, team, and organization-wide. I just had this model on the PowerPoint here to demonstrate that. At the top level, we have strategic organizational leadership. At the second level, we have dynamic and collaborative teams. And at the first level, we have engaged and motivated individuals. All of these levels are interconnected systems which impact not only on the others, but also on external stakeholders connected with the organization. We'll talk more about these three levels later as we get into strategies. So we have touched on what organizational health is, so now let's talk about the so what, or the advantages that can be gained of focusing on organizational health. Our experience and research has shown that healthy organizations enjoy enduring success and increased positive impact in the areas in which they work. Healthy organizations are able to reduce employee costs in such areas as hiring, turnover, absenteeism, performance issues, workplace accidents, and disability claims. Healthy organizations have excellent relationships with their clients and the communities they work with, and they have an increased ability to adapt and be resilient to change, as well as an enhanced ability to learn and innovate. With all of these benefits, why don't all or even most organizations pay closer attention to organizational health? Well, there are a number of potential reasons for this. Managers and employees may be cynical about organizational health based on their past experience of these types of initiatives. having been through fads like the Chia Pet that you see on the screen and gone by the wayside programs that claim to improve organizational culture, they might imagine organizational health to be too touchy-feely. Related to this, Lencioni observed that organizational health has never been presented as a simple, integrated, and practical discipline. As well, the direct benefits of implementing organizational health strategies are difficult to measure. There's so many different factors that go into the results that are created. This can make managers who are looking for more quantifiable results more skeptical. In addition, organizational health practices can feel uncomfortable for some, especially when dealing with issues like communication and conflict. This can take people out of their comfort zone at work who are normally used to more technical or tangible activities. And lastly, organizational health practices are not quick fixes. It requires patience, persistence, and continued diligence in applying them. The Health, Work, and Wellness Group has described organizational health as a continuous process rather than an obtainable state. This can be difficult for managers that have spent most of their time operationally focused, embroiled in day-to-day firefighting. So all of these factors may cause managers to be reluctant to dedicate the time needed to the type of activities that support organizational health. Graham Lowe has observed that a lack of organizational health is prevalent in many healthcare organizations. He states that branding an organization as community-minded, which is essential in healthcare, signals to prospective employees that it must be an employer that cares, treats others well, and will reflect their personal values. Yet in healthcare organizations, there often is a clear disconnect between the priority given to the health, safety, and well-being of the employees and healthcare providers and the organization's mission to improve the well-being of patients and communities. And this can be same at the individual level for healthcare providers who can sometimes be so focused on their clients they forget to take care of themselves. If this common disconnect towards organizational health can be removed, healthcare employers will be better able to accomplish their objectives, which includes keeping the good people in place who can lead out and make great things happen. Now that we have talked about some of the beneficial results of applying organizational health initiatives, we're now going to share a few things you might observe in both healthy and unhealthy organizations. For many of us, this won't be new for us. We've all worked in organizations which were to some degree healthy and unhealthy. So I want you just to take a minute now to think about the organization that you currently work in and the organizations that you've worked in the past. What did you observe or experience in those organizations that you would describe as healthy organizational practices? And what did you experience that you would describe as unhealthy practices? And if you want, feel free to jump right into us and share with us some of your thoughts as well. Just give you a few seconds to think about that. Okay, here is our list of some of the things that you'll see. Healthy organizations are able to be very clear about what they are trying to accomplish and how they'll be able to accomplish that. Vision, mission, goals, values, and principles are commonly, consistently, and passionately focused on by all staff and vigorously measured. This kind of alignment is well characterized in the story of the janitor who worked at NASA prior to the moon launch. When asked what he did, he responded that he helped send people to the moon. Yeah, and thanks for that comment about micromanaging an environment where funding is unstable. It's a great point about, how leadership can come across in an unhealthy organization. In healthy organizations, we can see that including organizational health objectives is there in company strategic direction, accountability, and measurement systems. You can see the commitment to organizational health in black and white in company statements and procedures. And more importantly, you can see it modeled in the actions of leaders and employees throughout the organization. Generating high productivity while sustaining high levels of employee morale is another characteristic of healthy organizations. There is purpose, motivation, and great amounts of energy applied consistently to accomplish organizational objectives and significant alignment with individual interests and skills. You can tell there's a great feeling within the team and in the workplace. Yeah, excellent point too about vision, mission, and values. That really is the key, that there is that alignment there, that you see the leaders in walking the talk and that actually see that in the day-to-day actions of the organization. Healthy organizations, as we talked about earlier, have low turnover of its good employees. But not only that, the organization is not only keeping its best employees, it is also able to manage those who are underperforming and let go of those who are not a right fit. Healthy organizations cultivate meaningful relationships within. They create opportunities for effective dialogue and facilitate productive conflict. They minimize politics and bureaucracy and confusion and provide opportunities for learning that are valued and prevalent in how the organization approaches things. So, what is commonly observed is that healthy organizations can appear smarter and more effective than others. That's not because they have more intelligent people or better people. It's because organizations that are healthy are more effective at tapping into the smartness or the skills and capabilities of people in the organization. They're better able to extract and utilize the potential, the often unmined resource of their employees. While the opposite of the above factors may be found in unhealthy organizations, other things you may see and experience in unhealthy organizations include individuals not being held accountable for negative interpersonal and team behaviors. This is a common occurrence with individuals whom the organization fears losing because of their skills and expertise. An author, Robert Quinn, sometimes refers to this as the tyranny of competence. Unhealthy organizations, you can find a sense of competitiveness, siloing, and turf protection, which inhibits or prevents collaboration amongst employees and teams. Unhealthy organizations will have issues with presenteeism. There'll be frequent complaining, rumors, gossip, and excessive socializing and time-wasting activities. In unhealthy organizations, we might experience a lack of respect from supervisor or leaders, that people won't feel valued or acknowledged for their contribution. Ineffective leadership that is unpredictable, may plague unhealthy organization. Leadership that's dictatorial, my way or the highway. Leadership where staff are uncomfortable to express their views and their opinions. This leads to increased stress and a lack of trust, which inhibits this open communication. Lencioni also describes the larger social cost that can snowball from unhealthy organizations. People who work in unhealthy organizations come to see their work as drudgery, They view successes and satisfaction as being unlikely, or even worse, out of their control. This leads to a diminished sense of hope and self-esteem, which can leak well beyond the workplace into families and often contribute to significant personal problems, the effects of which can be devastating and long-standing, a tragedy that he argues is completely avoidable. So how did our list compare to your experiences? Anything that we missed? Give you a few seconds to think about that. And feel free to write those in. We'd love to add them to our list as we sort of create this acknowledgement of what healthy and unhealthy organizations look like. So I think we've made the case for why organizational is important. Thanks very much for that comment about inconsistent application of policies, favoritisms, and lack of equity. Yeah, I mean, I think we see in unhealthy organizations that people aren't treated the same, and this can create competition and challenges. Thanks for the questions about unions and organizational health. I'll save that one and we can address that one at the end. So I'm just going to go on to identify strategies to improve organizational health. We've talked about why it's important. Now let's spend the remaining time talking about what can we actually do about it. What strategies can be implemented to improve organizational health? Going back to the model previously shown, there are 3 different levels at which organizational health strategies can be implemented. At the first level, we've got engaged and inspired individuals. At the second level, we have dynamic and collaborative teams. And at the third level, we have strategic organizational leadership. All 3 levels are interdependent and need to be specifically addressed to create organization-wide health. It is difficult sometimes for employees at a lower level in the organization to see how they can have an impact on organizational health. This may create the assumption that organizational health is only the responsibility of senior management. However, as Graham Lowe describes, progress on organizational health can result when employees themselves take initiative, alone or together, within their limited sphere of influence, to create small but tangible improvements. It is at the level of microaction that progress towards a healthy organization ideal can best be made. So let's take a closer look at this first level. Here at this level, again, the goal is to implement strategies that will engage and inspire individual employees and positively impact on their health and well-being. A few of the practices that can be implemented at this level include, and starting with, effective hiring practices. Hiring someone can be a multi-million-dollar decision. Thinking of an employee who could work 30-plus years at $50,000 to $100,000 a year. As Jim Collins says, author of Good to Great, when we hire, we need to get the right people on the bus and in the right seats. It is therefore important that selection processes are not solely focused on technical skills and experience. Rather, a significant emphasis needs to be placed on selecting people based on key values and behavioral competencies. This is followed up by an effective employee orientation program where the expectations and the procedures of the organization are well explained and, again, more importantly, modeled to new employees. Other key practices that can help implement organizational health at this level include meaningful employee development and performance management systems. Employee development is about providing learning and training opportunities that are practical to help an individual be successful in their current position, prepare them for future positions, while helping them to develop other competencies and capabilities that will motivate them and add value to them and the organization. Development does not always have to occur via costly training programs. Often in times of fiscal restraint, development is the first thing to go out the window because people equate it with courses and training. But often development is more effective when done with project opportunities and through mentoring from experienced leaders and valued peers. For many employees who are encouraged to learn and given access to development, this alone will motivate and engage them. Engaged employees will in turn be actively seeking out ways to develop and use their skills, knowledge, and abilities, both now and in the future, to further organizational goals. Similar and linked to employee development is implementing effective performance management systems to increase organizational health. Now, by performance management, I'm not talking about just the piece of paper signed off at the end of the year because HR says so. Performance management is a tool that can align employees' individual performance objectives with the goals of the organization. And we've learned that the more employees feel they are able to meaningfully contribute to the organization's success and see how their work contributes to that success, the more motivated they will be to produce results for the organization. Performance management should include employee expectations that are based around the core values and key behaviors, not just the technical requirements of the job. Employees need to see expectations related to helping the organization be healthy. An effective performance management system is not just about the written document. A truly effective system is an opportunity for employees to take the lead and to be self-accountable for their performance. This involves getting employees involved in setting and measuring their goals, having meaningful two-way conversations with peer groups and with supervisors where feedback is shared about employee strengths and contributions, where employees have opportunities to share ideas, and where employees are given feedback where they can improve, and a development focus is taken around that. This opportunity for involving the employee in the performance management process creates a boundaried autonomy, and coupled with development and acknowledgement will give an employee a sense of control. And we know from other studies such as Whitehall that an employee's sense of control can directly correlate to the stress that they feel in the workplace. And it also gives employees a sense of purpose, which can motivate an employee to perform above and beyond expectations. As well, another critical function of an effective performance management system is to provide a clear process for managing employees who are not a right fit and helping them to either find a better place to be or ultimately helping them to be out of the organization. These three strategies alone can help people at all levels feel empowered to make decisions and to take responsibilities for behaviors and actions that contribute to healthy work practices. What is also interesting and important to note is that some of these strategies can be self-implemented to varying degrees, even when your supervisor or manager and organization may be less supportive or aware of these types of practices. So let's now look at the second level and some strategies there. Building on the first level, it is more and more common today that individuals will work in teams and will need to work together with other teams in the course of their day-to-day and project work. Healthy organizations implement strategies to support team members to work effectively with each other and interdependently with other teams in the organizations. When workers are able to effectively collaborate, the sum becomes greater than the parts. Teams and organizations develop capabilities for performance, innovation, and creativity that far surpass what individual members bring to their jobs. Practices that support effective team development and collaboration include, first of all, working on making meetings efficient and effective. Lencioni cites meeting effectiveness as a key measure of the health of an organization. He says bad meetings are the birthplace of unhealthy organizations. And we've all sat in enough bad meetings to sort of be able to relate to that. Whereas good meetings are the origin of cohesion, clarity, and effective communications. Running successful meetings is both an art and a science, and the implementation of the right practices and selecting the appropriate meeting structures for the needs that you're trying to address can make all the difference. There are some great programs out there that can help teams stay focused together in meetings, all rowing in the same direction, and be able to achieve the right outcomes. A big part of what can make a team more effective is helping people to have a better understanding of themselves and the team members with whom they work. Building this understanding helps to create trust amongst individuals, teams, and our peers. Taking the time to talk together and learn each other's background and experiences is a good start here. Teams can also use profiling tools such as MBTI, One Smart World, or DISC, or many other tools as a way to build understanding of different people's strengths, preferences, and tendencies amongst team members. Profiling does need to be administered skillfully to ensure that people don't feel pigeonholed by their profile. But additionally, these tools can also help teams develop habits and practices to help them think, plan, and innovate together effectively. Another approach that can be implemented at the team level is to support individuals and teams to engage in productive conflict. Conflict is inevitable and is often seen and can become very negative and difficult to deal with. The majority of us are resistant to and would rather avoid conflict. However, in teams where there is high trust, particularly at senior levels in the organization, engaging in conflict helps organizations make important decisions and find the best possible answers. Implementing strategies to build trust and then training and developing team members to deal with conflict effectively can diminish the fear of conflict and help team members use it to make the organization and team better. Another practice that can have a positive impact is to be able to share team successes with senior management. This is not about bragging, but about creating opportunities for meaningful recognition of the team's accomplishments and contributions. And it needs to be done carefully so as not to create feelings of competitiveness between members within the team or with other teams. But when team members are recognized for good work that they do together, this can bring a team closer together and help strengthen working relationships and increase their motivation to continue to contribute together as a team to the team's success and ultimately the success of the organization. Organizational health strategies that support teams to be effective and collaborate together build on the strategies that are implemented at the individual level. They enable meaningful relationships that mean so much to us in our workplaces. It helps us to develop and create synergy between individuals and teams, enabling them to accomplish more than they could while working independently within the organization. So now let's look at the third level of the pyramid, strategic organizational leadership. While implementing organizational health strategies at the first and the second level, the individual and team, are important, there is no doubt that doing this at the third level of strategic organizational leadership will have the most significant impact on the overall health of the organization. In fact, in Lencioni's book, The Advantage, which is dedicated to improvements in creating organizational health, his entire focus on creating organizational health is on what leaders can actually do around that and on organizational leadership. So some practices that can be implemented at the organizational leadership level include leadership development. Jim Collins describes the most effective leaders as being dedicated first and foremost for the cause, the organizations, the work, not themselves. And they have a fierce resolve to do whatever it takes to make good on that ambition. Effective leaders display a paradoxical blend of personal humility and professional will. From his research, Collins believed that these types of leaders exist all around us, and that many people, if given the opportunity, have the potential to develop into these types of leaders. So again, it's key for organizations to have leadership development opportunities in place. Related to the second level strategy, another key practice for organizational leadership is to develop a cohesive and united leadership team. Again, building trust here is key. When an effective leadership team can work and trust together, they're able to continually communicate and clarify the vision, identify and lead out with core values, and focus on a few vitally important goals, allowing people to know where they really need to be spending their time and energy. Essentially, they're able to continually communicate where the organization is going, what it's trying to accomplish, and how we're going to go about accomplishing that. This strategic direction needs to include specific linkage to organizational health objectives. This clarity of direction and feedback feeds into the first and second levels, allowing individuals and teams to align their work and focus with the goals of the organization. Peter Senge described the power of a shared vision. When there is a genuine vision, as opposed to the all-familiar vision statement, this genuine vision allows people to excel and learn, not because they are told to, but because they want to. Vision becomes a living force at the individual and organizational level when people truly believe that they can shape their future. In an organization, a shared vision changes people's relationship with the company. It's no longer their company, it becomes our company. A shared vision is that first step, allowing people who mistrusted each other to be able to work effectively together. Another practice that can be helpful at this strategic leadership level is to review the organizational structure and ensure that the organizational structure facilitates empowerment and allows for effective leadership throughout the organization. It's also key for senior leaders to be able to receive employee concerns and access feedback from all levels. A strategy that can help with this is to use a periodic employee survey to get feedback from staff regarding organizational health. Now, it's key if that's implemented that leadership take action on the survey and quickly after results are posted, including to tie it into performance expectations for managers and in some cases all employees, or staff can become cynical and disillusioned about the initiative. When organizational health is identified as essential by leadership, including in strategic planning, and most importantly, modeled by senior management, this will create a positive cascading effect through all other levels of the organization. To realize an increased organizational health across an organization requires strategies to be implemented at all these three levels. The strategies identified here are not difficult to comprehend. In fact, it's likely that many of them have been tried or are currently in place, at least in some form in your organization. But what is more difficult, though, is to implement them and apply them in a way, effectively, together, and link them in a systematic way to create real gains in organizational health. In conclusion, a few key messages that I'd like to leave you with about creating organizational health. First, continuous efforts are required to make an organization healthy. Though the benefits of organizational health are evident, it's not yet common for leaders to focus on it. Healthy organizations gain efficiencies and reduce employee costs. Everyone can be involved in helping the organization to be healthier, even if it's just making changes for yourself. And the health of an organization is a key factor for it to have enduring success. I hope this webinar has left you with a better understanding of organizational health, the value it can bring to organizations, and some of the practical approaches that can be used to increase organizational health. I'd like to acknowledge the many experts whose work is reflected in this presentation. Experts like Patrick Lencioni, Graham Lowe, TJ Addington, Stephen Covey, Jim Collins, the Health, Work and Wellness Group of Canada, and many others. Our goal here at Equiate is to build on their great thinking, to add our own ideas and experience, and then to be able to work together with you to implement strategies specific to your needs to increase your organization's health. To finish off, I will share a few insights from Graham Lowe on creating healthy healthcare organizations. He says population health experts know that for people to thrive, they must live in environments that enable them to realize their human potential. This principle is familiar to healthcare professionals. The challenge now is to apply this thinking to employees in healthcare workplaces. Further, he states that healthy organizations generate benefits for the communities in which they operate. For example, healthier employees are less likely to use healthcare services. This has important implications for the public health system and employer-provided health benefit costs. The supportive environment of a healthy organization also helps employees enjoy a more fulfilling and productive personal and family life, with more time and energy to raise children, assist aging parents, and volunteer in community activities that matter to them. These opportunities positively feed back into the healthcare system. So healthcare employers need to look in the mirror and ask, how do our people practices affect the very system we are working in and striving to influence? So I thank you again and look forward to talking with you about some of your questions, and I'm going to turn it over to back to Steve.
Thank you, Mike. That was a wonderful presentation. One of the reasons I like organizational health so much, somebody once mentioned to me, organizations that struggle in different ways, it's not that they lack capacity or smarts. It's their health. It's how well they're able to implement what they want to do. And I think for those of us that work in health or the social sectors, we're all drawn to our work by its mission, its purpose, what we're trying to accomplish and achieve. And again, it's not our lack of capacity that gets in the way. It's how well our organization or other places or pieces that we work together with are able to function that affect our ability to do our work. It's a very important topic. Thank you, Mike. Let's open up some of the time we have left. We're scheduled to go until 10, and we've got a few housekeeping items at the end, so stay with us. But let's open up for questions. I'm going to change the meeting
All
mode.
attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
There you go. So just change the options so you can now unmute yourself. If you have a question, either type it in the chat box or you can ask it over the phone. We do have one question from before that we'll start off with about how unions affect organizational health. And if you do have a question to ask over the phone, just introduce yourself first so we know who's asking the question. But we'll start with the question, how do unions affect organizational health? And I'll pass it back to Mike to answer that one.
Thanks for that. This is a great question. Oftentimes, unions may be seen negatively or could be perceived as being competitive with management. However, organizational health is an area where there's common ground between unions and managers, or at least the opportunity for common ground, because both have an interest and are wanting to promote the health of employees. I think what that does is it becomes another relationship where strategies need to be implemented to ensure that relationships are built with unions, that common goals are established, and that there's an understanding how both unions and management are going to contribute to successfully helping to achieve this common goal. I've worked in and with organizations that have had very combative union management relationships, but through a lot of effort, that can be changed. And one of the key things that was helpful in these cases was having an initiative related to organizational health where both management and union leaders could come together and talk about how they could work effectively together on this. So I think there's lots of opportunities for unions to be a very positive influence in helping organizations to work on organizational health.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any additional questions either through the chat box or over the telephone? I'll just give you a few seconds in case there's some people typing in here. Okay, well, I'm not hearing any additional questions at this point, so I'd like to thank you for your participation. As I mentioned at the beginning, oh, hold on, Mara, just snuck one in. Good job, Mara. Can you give some suggestions how to promote good meetings? Great question.
Thanks very much for that question. Yeah, I mean, it can be a bit of a challenge out there. I think, first of all, it's recognizing, where are some of the challenges that you're experiencing with your meetings? What are those things that are not working well or throwing meetings off? I think then a really helpful thing to do is to look for programs and information structures that can help teams be unified in how meetings are being conducted and how people are contributing to meetings. I've had some experience with programs. Patrick Lencioni has some great literature on how to meet effectively, and have been involved with a program called One Smart World, which has a lot of information built around how to have more effective meetings. In that program, for example, there are guidelines for how meetings should be run. There are opportunities to identify what is going to be talked about in meetings and what objective is being sought after to achieve, so that everybody can know what they're working towards and stay focused on that objective. And again, sort of going back to the slide we showed earlier, you know, the key is having everybody row in the right direction. Also, I'll just briefly touch on where different people's preferences can really come out, and if not kept in check, it can become a real challenge for meetings. So, for example, if you've got Bob, who's a very creative person and who loves to throw out ideas all the time, if he's continually doing that while other team members are trying to make decisions or analyze one of those options, that can really make meetings unproductive. But as well as we identify where people's strengths are, you know, whether it be creativity or analysis or decision making, those strengths can be utilized and become a source of power in terms of helping to make meetings more effective.
Thanks, Mara. And I'll just add, Cotter talks about a sense of urgency as being the first step in any kind of change, and changing meetings is the same thing. You know, the why question has to be answered. Why should we change our meetings? But there's a great tool, a meeting cost calculator, where you can figure out how much your meetings are actually costing your organization. But Mara, if you'd like to send us an email, we'd be happy to send you links to some of these things that we mentioned and that you can look at and use. Follow-up question here. Do standard agenda items hamper effective meetings?
It can depend if those standard agenda items are really helping the team to accomplish something. You know, we've all been in meetings where people go around the table and talk about things day in and day out, which becomes more of a story to hear than an action to take. But there are certain meeting structures that can be set up where important standard items that need to be discussed on a day in and day out basis can be addressed. But they need to be put within a well-defined structure so that meetings aren't extended beyond the time that's necessary and that tangents aren't taken to go that take people off track.
Thanks, Mike. Any additional questions? We're nearing the close of our time, but might be able to sneak one more in. Okay, well, just to wrap up, as I mentioned, this webinar has been recorded, and I'll be sending out the link to it in case you wish to refer to any of the information here in future. I'll also be sending out a really brief survey just to give you a chance to evaluate the webinar. It's very helpful for us to continually try to improve our webinars and make them more useful and applicable for you, the webinar audience. We also have something we call our 4-hour rule, and if you're not familiar with Equiate, this is part of our culture here as an organization, and it's modeled on Google. One of their practices around, you may have heard of their 20% rule. You know, this is where they give their engineers and employees autonomy over 20% of their time. They can work on anything they want to, and this is where Gmail came from and other good ideas that Google has. So here at Equiate, we have our 4-hour rule. It's the same idea where we have at least 4 hours a week that we can use however we wish on projects, and with these webinars, we've dedicated that time to follow-up conversations about webinar topics. So if you have something in your work environment that you'd like to talk about and could use some time just one-on-one or with your team or group or manager or however that works, we'd be happy to have a phone conversation or a webinar or Skype or whatever works. We enjoy those opportunities to talk through these topics a bit more thoroughly and make it a bit more applicable to you and your setting. So if that would be of interest, our email address is there on the screen. Just send us an email. We'd be happy to schedule something and arrange something. So thank you again for your participation today. This has been this is the first of our fall webinars. We'll have others coming up. So to find out more about those, visit our webinar page on our website. And we look forward to further conversations and to seeing you again in our future webinars. Again, my name is Steve Peterson, and Michael Parker was our presenter today, and we're with Equiate, and signing off.